Have you ever experienced the high of getting a client under contract or sitting at the closing table only to have it quickly followed by that really low low of not knowing where your next deal is coming from or what your pipeline is going to look like or where your next paycheck is coming from? Then this is the class you don't want to miss. Happy Monday, everyone. Today's class is super exciting, and I hope that you find it super motivating as you enter the summer season. If you're new to the group or even new to these Monday classes, my name is Kristen Brumbaugh, and I am your in-house real estate marketing expert. I've been a licensed real estate agent since 2005, and for the last 7 years, I've been helping agents all over the country increase their business and create systems to scale. 3.5 years ago, my husband and I also opened a real estate brokerage here in South Carolina, and in that time, we've grown to nearly 200 agents across the state. It's my absolute pleasure and passion to help agents just like you create and scale a business that you love, but that is also balanced with the life you deserve. In today's class, we're going to be talking about your leads or the lack of. Let me mute real quick the sound. There we go. So we're going to be talking today about leads or your lack of leads. Now, this class is being broadcasted live on Facebook and it's on Zoom. So if you're watching or listening later in the replay, you may hear me acknowledging comments or answering questions from the chat. You're always welcome to comment in replay, and I'm going to keep track of those comments and I'll come back and respond in the comment as well in the chat. But I just want to clear up any confusion for our later watchers. If you're watching this on Facebook and you want to hop on the Zoom, I'm going to drop the link here in a second. So that way you can find that link pinned in the chat and join us live on Zoom anytime. Let me go ahead and do that before I forget. And we'll pin it. There we go. And if you're joining us live here, if you would just comment live either in the chat on Facebook or on in the Zoom, everybody on Zoom is going to be live. But if you would just comment live in the chat, then that lets me know who's watching with me now. If you're watching this later after 2 p.m. Eastern on Monday, then comment replay. That just kind of gives me an idea as to when everybody's watching. And it helps boost this engagement. So that way everybody else in the group has a better chance of seeing the content to help them grow their business as well. If you have questions throughout the class, feel free to drop them in the chat, and I'm going to go back and look through those towards the end and address them at that point. Y'all, my brain is too squirreled sometimes to get all the questions while we're in the process, and I will go off on a tangent. If you've watched these Monday classes before, I am trying to be better about keeping us on task and keeping us focused. So I'll address a lot of those questions towards the end, but I promise to answer all of your questions. So back to the So by a virtual show of hands, and dropping a 1 in the chat, that's our virtual show of hands, just drop a 1 in the chat. Who here has ever experienced that moment that I talked about at the beginning of class, where you have that really high, you're walking out of a closing or you got a client under contract, followed by that moment of panic because you're not really sure where your next bit of business is coming from. Drop a 1 in the chat if that sounds like you. And I'm going to put my own 1 in the chat here because I've 100% been there. There we go. I've 100% been there. We all have, I think, at some point in time. We've all had that point in our careers. And tell me this, who would be, drop a me in the chat if you'd be happy to put an end to this feeling forever. Put me in the chat if this sounds like you. You want to be able to end that feeling forever of having that moment of panic of not knowing where your business is coming from. And I'm going to say that was me as well before I learned a lot of the strategies and things that I know now. And we have a little bit of a delay between Zoom and Facebook, so I am going to try to be mindful of that. And so as people start to comment in the chat on Zoom or on Facebook, I want to just be mindful of that delay. So I give everybody a chance to respond and answer as they get going. Awesome. You guys are amazing. So, the thing though, is if you continue to run your business like that, just focusing on one deal at a time, and then when that's done, you're like, okay, what's next? Where do I find the next one? A couple of things. One, you're going to run yourself into the ground. You're going to get really burnt out because that is an emotional roller coaster that wears on you. Also, you're never going to be able to scale your business and take control of your time. We all got into real estate. Well, not, I can't say all, but a lot of us get into real estate because it is the business that allows you to make your schedule, right? And then you often feel like you are doing anything but, like everybody else has control of your schedule. But the thing is when you start to establish a consistent flow to your business and you're not having to starve yourself deal to deal, then you get the ability to take control of your time. Instead of spending hundreds of hours cold calling, door knocking, talking to random strangers, what you need to create is a lead flow, something that attracts clients to you, attracts leads to you on a consistent, predictable basis. Not only will a lead flow generate you new leads, but it's going to do it consistently. And when you have leads coming in consistently, you can stop worrying about when or where the next sale is going to come from, and you can start focusing on how you can grow your business. So I'm going to give you 3 easy to implement tips for when you're trying to create a lead flow. If you guys are ready and excited to hear what those 3 tips are going to be, drop an excited in the chat. Just let me know that you're out there and hearing what we're talking about. Drop excited in the chat. I would love to hear from you guys as well. But we're going to talk about 3 easy to implement tips for when you're creating your lead flow. So the first tip I have, and y'all are going to laugh, but it's start spending money on your marketing. I hear a lot of agents who talk about their business and they talk about being a referral-based business. And y'all, 100% referral-based business is not a flex. There are 2 ways that you are growing your business, and you're either giving up your money or your time. And only one of those things is scalable. And it's not the thing that only gives you 24 hours in a day. You should be setting aside roughly $20 a day to invest in your marketing if you want to create a consistent lead flow in your business that allows you to have a predictable pipeline and consistent business. My second tip, constantly test your message. Now, that might sound like marketing voodoo, right? And that's like verbiage that it's like, okay, what does that mean though? Like, what do I need to do to test my message? Well, first, you need to create a baseline to see exactly what you can get for your $20 a day. You can do that through ads. You can do that through really any marketing avenue. It doesn't have to be specifically to digital marketing, but if you can kind of see, okay, what is it that I can spend about $20 a day on and what kind of return can I get on that? Well, that's going to help you create your baseline, and it's going to help you see if it's a valuable pipeline or resource, or if you need to change it up. Maybe you need to change the media. Maybe you need to change the messaging, imagery that you're using. But constantly tweaking that, constantly making little changes after you establish that baseline is what's going to help you really see if what you're saying and what you're trying to offer resonates with your audience. Does that make sense? If that makes sense to you guys, let me know in the chat. And I'm just going to try to keep letting people into the Zoom. Sorry if I missed you just for a second. But if that makes sense to you guys, let me know in the chat, because I think a lot of times we put out marketing and we let it run for 2 years sometimes, and we don't ever change it. Well, while it's good to allow things to settle a little bit and to kind of see what it's doing, to give it room to breathe, you also need to do it let me just spotlight that. There we go. You also need to be mindful of the return that you're getting, right? You need to be mindful if you need to make changes, and not just changing up the whole avenue of marketing that you're doing, but changing up small tweaks so that way you can see if it will work, but in a different manner. And then that brings me to my third tip, which is getting very specific on the problems of your audience. Be aware of the problems that your audience is facing. Odds are the leads that you're getting are what we call top of funnel. They're usually earlier in their buying journey or selling journey. And so it's super important that you're aware of the problems that they're facing, the problems that they're experiencing, the questions they have, and that you can be the expert to offer the solutions and the answers that they need. They can get those answers and solutions to their problems from you. And all it's going to cost them is just a little bit of currency in the form of their contact information. That contact information is what's going to allow you to have the opportunity to create a conversation and to create a relationship with them. Remember, rarely will you ever work with somebody who you've never met before, that you've never had a conversation with, right? So the ability to just start that conversation process, the ability to start that relationship building process is worth its weight in gold. And if that's all the currency you're asking from your prospects where you're generating leads, then I'd say it's a pretty fair trade-off to what you could ultimately get. The stronger you are in converting those conversations into appointments and into clients, the more transactions you're going to get, and possibly the fewer leads you'll need to generate on a daily basis, depending on what your goals are. That said, my suggestion is to generate around 10 to 20 new leads a day to keep a consistent pipeline of business. This pipeline is going to be something that you nurture, that you grow, that you build that know, like, and trust factor with. So that way you can create that consistent lead flow, that consistent pipeline, and that consistent business like we were talking about earlier. So to recap, and if you guys remember, if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. But to recap, you're going to need a lead flow to solve the problem of scaling your business. Not just 1 or 2 leads a day or a week, like I also see, but 10 to 20 a day. Consistent lead flow is what's going to be the answer to having a consistent business and not having to worry about if you're going to have to rob Peter to pay Paul next month because you don't know where your next closing is coming from. To get that lead flow, you're going to need to do a few things, and those things are spend some money on your marketing. You're going to have to generate, 10 to 20 leads at a time. So that way you have that optimal flow to help you give you the best conversion opportunity. You're going to need to consistently test your message to see if what you're saying and what you're putting out there is resonating with your audience, to see if it is, working, to see if it's attracting the right type of people. And you're going to need to be aware of the problems that your audience is facing, the problems that they're going to have in their journey, the questions that they're asking, but they don't really want to ask, right? You're going to just need to be aware of those things and give them the answers without them having to ask you right away. And you're going to need to be comfortable asking people for their contact information. So that way it gives you a chance to pick up the phone and talk to them, to create that conversation, to create that relationship. At that point, it's not cold calling. You've given a bit of value. And this is something we talked about a little bit in the boot camp, and I talked about in a workshop I did last week. Your relationship with your audience, your relationship with your clients is like a bank, and you make deposits and withdrawals. And those deposits are the value you give them, the information you share with them, the answer to their questions that you provide. And then every now and then you need to make a withdrawal, right? You need to ask for their information so that way you can have a real conversation with them about their personal needs. Every now and then you need to ask for a withdrawal and ask them to work with you, to trust you. Every now and then you might need to ask for a withdrawal, to ask them to refer somebody to you, right? And so that's why it's really important that we do provide value and that we constantly make those deposits of value into the relationship that we're trying to create with our audience. So that way, when the time comes, we're not afraid to ask and to withdraw that, that asking for the sale component of it, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I want to see if we have any questions, and I'm not sure. Let's see here. My chat is like, there we go. Okay, so yeah, I want to see if you guys have any questions about any of that, anything that you want me to dive into a little bit more specifically. And if not, that's cool too. If you want to chat more about implementing these systems and these strategies in your own business, comment leads below and I'll chat with you soon. I'll reach out and we can chat more about it. But if you're curious just to figure out how do I make this work? Or how do I, what's the best place to get started for my $20 a day? What's going to give me the best return? then let me know in the chat that you want to talk more about what you want specifically. Or what, if you want to talk about your situation personally in a private setting, then we can do that as well. Just comment leads in the chat. I don't think we have any questions that I've seen, and that's totally cool. If you guys feel like you understood what I've said, if it's making sense, let me know that. Just comment makes sense. That way I can make sure, I want to make sure that I'm clear in my messaging to give you guys the best value, because that's what you're here for, is to really learn things that are going to help you grow your business. So yeah, if you want to chat more about how to implement a marketing strategy in your business that's going to give you 10 to 20 leads a day, that's going to create a consistent pipeline of leads, that's going to help give you the best referral possibilities, then comment leads in the chat and I'll reach out and we'll schedule a time to talk together. Until then, I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day. I hope you have an amazing summer and are enjoying the weather wherever you are. I assumed everybody was warm right now. I'm in South Carolina. We are on the surface of the sun, basically. But I did see a Facebook post this morning of somebody wearing a turtleneck, and I was amazed. So I hope you're enjoying the weather wherever you are. And if you ever need me or you ever have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out and I will talk to you guys soon.
And really get all these perks and